It's that time of the year. On this week's Poker Report, we explore the NCAA bracketology across the country.
And it's almost time for Pro Day in Stillwater. We'll tell you which Cowboys to look for in this year's event.
And I have all the insight for Cowboys social media.
Stick around for all things OSU sports right here on the Poker Report. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Poker Report. I am Baldridge.
And I'm Plum. Buckle up, we have much to talk about in the world of OSU athletics. It's a busy time of year for spring sports. We start with wrestling. Several Cowboy wrestlers will move on to nationals after the Big 12 championship. The Poker Report's Katie Pelzel has the story on the Big 12 championships.
OSU wrestling went to Tulsa last weekend in hopes of bringing home one of these. But they came home empty-handed, breaking a school record streak of 9 consecutive conference title wins.
The Cowboys ended 4th at the Big 12 tournament behind Missouri, Oklahoma, and Iowa State.
I loved to win the 10th one, but we didn't. Just didn't materialize, didn't happen. Needed a little bit more, needed a little bit of break. But I thought we did, or had a good tournament overall.
Although it wasn't a team win, several Cowboys walked away with individual titles. Dayton Fix won his 3rd individual Big 12 title with a 6-2 win and enters the NCAA championship with a perfect 21-0 record.
I think that as we prepare for the next 2 weeks, that he's in a good place right now and definitely competing well.
Kane Kefler won his 2nd career conference title 2-1 with no takedowns and 2 escapes. Dustin Plott won his 1st Big 12 title in a thrilling matchup.
Growing up in Oklahoma, I've come to the Big 12 several times, and it's definitely been a goal of mine since I was little.
Plott won the match 4-3 in the final 15 seconds with an escape and a takedown.
It was great to have it happen, not really in the fashion that I'd like. In my mind, I wrestled a little bit sloppy, but I got it done late.
Trevor Mastro Giovanni, Dakota Gear, and Carter Young finished 3rd, 5th, and 7th, respectively, in their placement matches. The Pokes have secured 6 spots at the NCAA championships with the opportunity for 4 other wrestlers to get an at-large selection to the championship. NCAA championships are March 17th through the 19th in Detroit at Little Caesars Arena. For the Poker Report, I'm Katie Pelzel.
Thanks, Katie. Hopefully the Cowboys can add a few more national championships after the disappointing Big 12 tournament.
We also have some breaking news from an OSU sport going through more of a transition at the moment. OSU and the women's basketball program have mutually agreed to part ways with head coach Jim Littell. This comes before Littell was set to coach his girls in this year's Big 12 championship tournament. Littell finished with a 203 and 139 record, as well as being the 2nd winningest coach in program history. Coach Littell also won Coach of the Year in the Big 12 last season.
Spending the last 11 years as head coach for the Cowgirls, OSU now looks in a new direction for leadership of the Cowgirl basketball team. The beginning of the Cowboys' 2022 baseball season has already had its ups and downs, first winning their first series of the year, but more recently coming off getting swept at home by unranked Gonzaga. Let's take a look at what the Cowboys have ahead.
After not having much luck in Arlington a few weeks ago, OSU will once again be playing at Globe Life Field against BYU. Coming off their first home win of the season against Missouri State, the Pokes look to bounce back in a big way in Arlington, Texas. The series will include 3 games Thursday and Friday at 6:30 as well on Saturday, then at 2:30 on Saturday. OSU hopes to improve to their 7-5 record.
Wish we could make another trip down there this weekend. We wish the Cowboys the best of luck as they take on a future Big 12 school, the BYU Cougars.
Another Cowgirl team that has maintained a top 10 status is our women's golf team, dealing with the announcements to enter the transfer portal from Kaylee McGinty and more recently Isabella Fierro.
That didn't stop the Cowgirls from being in contention this past weekend at the VyStar Gator Invitational in Florida, after the team would finish in 3rd after leading into the final day. Cowgirl Han-Shun Yu led the Cowgirls, finishing at 6 under, claiming 2nd place as an individual. OSU will return to action on March 18th in Saddlebrook, Arizona. The men's golf team is also looking to make a climb up the leaderboard in their next tournament, as they make a trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to compete in the General Hackler Championship. They're coming off a 7th place finish at the Cabo Classic last week.
Yeah, golf isn't the only sport that I'll be watching in March this year, as we have some basketball in Phoenix. It's unfortunate because I was really looking forward to see the Oklahoma State Cowboys playing in the Big 12 tournament and the NCAA tournament, but they're ineligible for both, and it's disappointing because I wanted to go back to my hometown to see the Pokes play, at least in the Big 12 tournament, but they're not even going to get a chance to do that.
It's very disappointing, but I'm still a basketball fan, so I'm still going to watch the tournament and just kind of see what teams make it to the final game.
Absolutely. I mean, there's still plenty of basketball and great teams to watch.
Coming up after this quick break, our own Alex Dusky chatted with experts from the 5 major conferences to help you fill out your NCAA tournament bracket. Who are the favorites? Who are the potential Cinderella teams? We'll have those answers.
We'll also take a look at some players who are preparing for the NFL draft from Oklahoma State and the Cowboy Pro Day. All that coming up on the Poke Report.
Welcome back to the Poke Report. We still have a lot to talk about. So it's basketball season, and we can't have a sports show without keeping you up to date on what's going on in the world of hoops. We had our crew check in on the OSU men's and women's teams as they end their regular seasons, and we have highlights for their games right here.
Last Wednesday, the Cowgirls hosted Bedlam at Gallagher-Iba Arena. It's the final home game of the regular season. All the seniors got to start in this one, including Brittany Reeves, who scored the first basket of the game for the Cowgirls. Also a big key contributor in this game coming off the bench was Taylon Collins, as she gets the putback right there. Lexi Keys was also huge in this game. 5 for 11 from downtown in this one. Lauren Fields was also big, as she usually is, scoring 15 points in this game. Cassie DeLapp was also a bright spot. She gets the putback right there, and she scored 18 points in this game along with 9 rebounds. Back to Lexi Keys once again. She just could not miss from this game. She was huge in order for the Cowgirls to try to get a victory for Bedlam. However, that's not how the game would end. Cowgirls would lead this one at halftime. They had a chance to win it on multiple occasions, but unfortunately the Cowgirls came up short, losing the game 79-76. OSU finished the season 8-19 overall and 3-15 in conference play. The Cowgirls played hard in this one, just couldn't finish it. Let's pass it over to the men's side, as last Saturday was their senior day as the guys hosted Texas Tech. Isaac Likely knocks down the rare 3-point shot. In his last game at Gallagher-Iba Arena, Bryce Thompson was big in this game, scoring 11 points and a lot of key clutch shots and defensive plays. But the big story in this game was Rondell Walker, who scored a game-high 12 points, 3 for 6 from beyond the arc. He was a huge key in this game in order for a Cowboy victory, and the Cowboys would do just that after this clutch bucket right here by Bryce Thompson, giving the Cowboys a 52-51 win over Texas Tech. OSU finished 6th in the Big 12 Conference, but unfortunately their season comes to a screeching halt as they were unable to compete in postseason play due from the NCAA ban.
Although this was the last time we'll be seeing our men's team this season, it was a roller coaster to watch so many close games this past year.
Phoenix, that's the truth. I'm also excited to see the new direction that our Cowgirl team takes in the GIA next season. Now, even though that our Cowboys do not have a chance in this year's March Madness, that doesn't mean that Cowboy fans aren't excited to fill out their brackets and to watch the NCAA tournament. Our very own Alex Dusky chatted with some experts across the country discussing March Madness. And Alex, what more can you tell us?
Thank you, Brock. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Dusky. We are in the second week of March, and you know what that means. March Madness is right around the corner. With the selection show on Sunday, we wanted to give you a quick look around the Power 5 conferences on what to expect in the tournament. Today, I am joined by representatives of each of the Power 5 conferences. Let's start off on the East Coast. Cameron Azir of Citrus TV, what's happening with the ACC?
Thanks, Alex. From Syracuse University, I'm Cameron Azir. Well, the ACC has been riddled with unparalleled parity so far this season, but the top dogs, it's still Coach K's Duke Blue Devils, and a big reason why all 5 starters averaging double figures in points. So expect Duke to be slotted in as a number 2 or 3 seed in the Big Dance, and they might be wanting to make a Final Four and national championship push, not just because of their recent woes, but it is Coach K's last season. season. Now, you have to dip further down to see the rest of the field in the ACC. North Carolina and Notre Dame, two teams that have won over 20 games in the regular season, but they've struggled against quad one opponents, the top tier opponents, the ranked teams. That's a big reason why both North Carolina and Notre Dame will most likely be 9, 10, or 11 seeds. Expect them to make some sort of a push, maybe into the Sweet 16, but not much further than that. And then the shockers. These could be the Cinderella stories of the Atlantic Coast Conference and the NCAA tournament. It's Miami and Wake Forest, two teams that were predicted to be the bottom feeders of the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they've somehow found their way to get into the big dance. For now, expect them to be a 9, 10, or 11 seed as well. And then one more team, Virginia Tech. They're in the first 4 out according to ESPN, so they'll have to play well in the ACC tournament to play in to the big dance. From Syracuse University, I'm Cameron Ezer. Alex, back to you.
Thank you, Cameron. What an end to Coach K's career, losing to rival UNC at home. It's these kinds of upsets that we get excited for with March Madness. Quickly moving over to arguably the strongest basketball conference this season, the Big Ten. Caleb Spinner from Ohio State, take it away.
Well, thanks, Alex. I couldn't think of a better place to talk about Big Ten basketball than the home of the Buckeyes, the Schottenstein Center here on the campus of Ohio State University, where the Buckeyes on Sunday lost to their arch rival Michigan Wolverines 75-69. That's going to hurt their momentum going into the conference tournament this weekend. But looking at the Big Ten as a whole, there are several dangerous teams and national stars in the spotlight who could certainly throw a wrench into things in the March Madness tournament. We're talking Wisconsin's Johnny Davis, Illinois' Kofi Coburn, and of course Ohio State's E.J. Liddell, who averages his scoring 19.6 points per game, just shy of 8 rebounds per contest, and is leading the Big Ten Conference with 2.6 blocks a night. Whoever comes away with the Big Ten title, one thing's for certain, they'll be able to boast they've played some of the best teams in the nation going into March.
Thanks, Caleb. There's no doubt that, unfortunately for us, Ohio State is the better OSU in basketball this season. Making our way over to the West Coast, we are joined by Matt Lazarus of UA TV3 on the phone. Matt, thanks for calling.
Thank you, Alex. Glad I could call in today.
So Matt, tell us what's been happening with the Pac-12.
The Pac-12 has been a roller coaster ride all season long, but there have been a couple of frontrunners that I think have a real shot at cutting down the nets this season. Leading the pack from start to end has been the Arizona Wildcats, who went 28-3 this year in Tommy Lloyd's first season as head coach, including an undefeated record of 17-0 at home. The Wildcats are top 5 in the nation in scoring, rebounding, and lead the nation in assists per game. There is no team in the country that spreads the floor and plays transition basketball like the Wildcats. And if they stay hot, watch out for them to make a deep run in this year's tournament. As for the UCLA Bruins, they were last year's Cinderella team, cruising all the way to the Final Four. They've had quite a shaky season this year, but with most of their sophomores and juniors returning from last season, UCLA is a real sleeper to make yet another run in March Madness. A third team to keep your eye on as the tournament rolls around is the Usc Trojans. Led by junior forward Isaiah Mobley, the Trojans are top 10 in the country in rebounds, play physical basketball, and shoot the ball well from three. They're a hard team to beat on any night, but their inconsistency this season could lead them to an early upset in the tournament.
All right, thank you, Matt. I'm sure it's been a blast covering Arizona this season. We're going to come back to the Midwest and look at the Big 12. We are now joined by our own Jace Andrews.
Well, thanks, Alex. Unfortunately, the Oklahoma State Cowboys will not be participating in this year's March Madness, but the same cannot be said for the rest of the Big 12. Looking first at the defending national champions, the Baylor Bears. The Bears look to go back-to-back and be the 6th team ever in NCAA history to do so. Now, the Bears have had some injury struggles as of late, but they seem to be getting healthy at the perfect time. The Bears ranked first in Quadrant 1 victories for the 2nd year in a row and look to be primed for another Final Four run. Their counterparts, the Kansas Jayhawks, are led by Ochai Agbaji. They rank 2nd in the Quadrant 1 victories with 10. Now, the Bears and the Jayhawks split the regular season series going 1-1, and they are both currently ranked as 1 seeds in this year's tournament. Traveling down to Lubbock, the Red Raiders seemed to be on top of the world last year with Mac McClung and Chris Beard, but now this year seemed to be lost all hope. But hope was not lost as they reached to the number 9 rank in all of college basketball, but unfortunately their problem this year, upsets, losing to Kansas State, TCU, Oklahoma, and OSU. Now in Austin, the Longhorns look to be for their first time ever a true threat in the Big 12 after losing Shaka Smart and gaining Chris Beard in the head coaching category. The The Longhorns, though, have been struggling this year as they've had some problems against the top 3 teams in the Big 12, going just 1-5 against those teams. Now, my final team I'll mention is the Iowa State Cyclones. The Cyclones were looking very good at the beginning of the season, but since then have just kind of fallen off a cliff. We'll see if the Cyclones can become this year's Cinderella story. Back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Jace. Like you said at the top of your segment, I'm sad that the Cowboys can't continue on in the tournament, but I am glad that they got their final win here in Stillwater. Finally, let's go down to Gainesville, Florida. Ethan Curtis of WUFT joins me now.
Thanks, Alex. Leading the SEC is Auburn and Kentucky, who have been on the 1-2 line for pretty much the entirety of the season since conference play started. The Tigers are led by arguably the nation's best front court in Walker Kessler and potential #1 overall pick Jabari Smith. For the Wildcats, they are anchored by potential player of the year Oscar Schwebe, who is the nation's leading rebounder and has one of the highest efficiency ratings of any player in the country. Another team to look out for is the Arkansas Razorbacks, and if you're looking to hop on the hype train, or the must bus, as they like to say down in Fayetteville, it might be too late. The Razorbacks have wins against Auburn, Kentucky, and Tennessee in their last 8 games and will look to stay hot as they enter the SEC tournament. Also keep an eye on Tennessee and LSU as both of these squads are now healthy entering postseason play. Alabama is another team that could make some noise but are one of the most inconsistent teams in the country. With wins over top teams like Gonzaga and Baylor and losses to Georgia, Missouri, and others, Nate Oates' squad has continued to play up and down to their competition. Rounding out the SEC is the Florida Gators, who currently sit on Joe Lunardi's next 4 out. With inconsistent play throughout the season, the Gators' best wins include Auburn and Ohio State, but have suffered losses to both Texas Southern and Ole Miss. The Gators will need to make a deep run or even win the SEC tournament to get into the big dance. SEC basketball will continue soon in Tampa as the madness is set to begin, and I am as excited as ever. From WUFT News here in Gainesville, Florida, I'm Ethan Curtis. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Ethan. I know you're really hoping the Gators can pull through in the SEC tournament. That's all the basketball knowledge I have for you now. Be sure to check back in a couple of weeks for some more insight from the tournament. Have fun and good luck filling out your brackets. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Alex. I, for one, cannot wait to see how my bracket gets busted when Colgate goes to the Sweet 16 this year. Don't go away. We still have plenty of time as we take a look at some of our Cowboys' performance at the Combine this year leading up to their annual Pro Day.
As well as a recap of Cowgirls softball games against Minnesota this week. All that and more on the Poke Report.
Hello and welcome back to the Poke Report. An impressive showing for a trio of Cowboy football players who were in Indianapolis this past weekend competing in the NFL Combine. Players included linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez, safety Colby Harvell-Peel, and running back Jalen Warren. Malcolm Rodriguez had an impressive showing running a 4.57 40-yard dash, which tied the 4th fastest speed amongst linebackers competing. Running back Jalen Warren ran a 4.56 40-yard dash, and safety Colby Harvell-Peel put up 21 bench press reps, was the 3rd most amongst defensive backs. However, he did not run the 40-yard dash.
The Cowboys will have a second chance to impress NFL scouts when Oklahoma State hosts a pro day in Stillwater March 24th. All other draft-eligible players will have a chance to compete as well.
One highly anticipated sport this year was Cowgirl softball head coach Kenny Gajewski as a top 10 team early in the 2022 season. And Dalton Spence has highlights of the Cowgirls' latest games against Minnesota.
OSU and Minnesota picked up where they left off on Sunday's weather-delayed game Wednesday evening. Cowgirls trailing 2-1 when in the bottom of the 5th, Sydney Pennington hits this 2-run shot to put the Cowgirls up by 1. Now to the top of the 6th when right fielder Caitlin Carlwile stretches out, robbing Megan Dre of a hit. Now we go to the top of the 7th. Sarah Kinch with the sac bunt to tie it up for the Golden Gophers. We end up going to extras. Top of the 9th, Natalie Denhartog hammers it to right field to put Minnesota up by 2. Bottom of the 9th, Cowgirls down by 1 with 2 outs when Taylor Tuck finds the gap and evens it back up. We go to the 10th when Sydney Sterlo lined it out to second, but Brianna Evans couldn't hold on to the ball. Golden Gophers scored to go back on top. Now the Cowgirls had to try to answer again when Caitlin Carlisle singles it to center, evening things back up. Staying in the 10th, bases loaded, and Sydney Pennington gets walked to give the Cowgirls a 7-6 victory. Now for the second game, bottom of the third, an OSU up 3-0 when pitcher Miranda Ellis splits the gap and Carlisle beats the tag to put the Cowgirls up by 4. Don't forget Ellis's name. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Bottom of the 5th, and Sydney Pennington launches the ball out of the park and extending the Cowgirls' lead by 5. To the next inning, Carlisle hits it out to left center and drives in 2 more. And finally, to the top of the 7th inning, Minnesota finally gets on the highlight reel. Psych! Miranda Ellis strikes out her 8th victim of the night to complete the no-hitter. It's the 48th no-no in school history and Ellis's 4th. OSU wins 7-0. The Cowgirls improved to 14-5 on the year and have won their last 9 of 10.
Thank you, Dalton. Coach has the girls looking good as we inch towards conference play later in the month.
Hopping over to Greenwood Tennis Center, there's much to talk about in the men's and women's tennis teams. Although the men's team is coming off of a loss this past Sunday against number 15 Middle Tennessee, the Cowboys had previously won 5 matches in a row, including UNLV and Omaha. They look to prepare for matches against SMU this weekend and later their first Big 12 match against OU on April 1st.
The women's team seems to be making more of a racket this year as they check in at number 7 in the country in the latest ITA rankings as they come off wins against Yale as well as Wake Forest. They are also preparing to start in Big 12 play facing Kansas State this Friday at 5 o'clock.
I'd love to see the stands filled up in Greenwood in the upcoming weeks. You know, this team really deserves the support. I'm trying to make it to the match because I know that we have a pretty good team. And it's just going to be so exciting to actually get to see it in person.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it as well. I've never been to a tennis match, so I think this is going to be a really high-key matchup. So I'm looking forward to it as well, Phoenix.
Social media is such a huge aspect of college sports. Let's go to Cameron Proctor as she updates us on some social media activity across campus in recent weeks. Cameron?
Thanks, Phoenix. I'm back with another social media Cowboy update. Spring sports are in full swing and our Cowgirl softball team takes to Twitter for more than just score updates. My personal favorite thing about our Cowgirl Twitter is the behind-the-scenes action we've seen this season. From watching film, practicing, and hitting the weight room, the Cowgirls are prepping for an amazing season and letting their fans get a sneak peek. Here at Oklahoma State, we are all family and support one another, and we see that as our Cowgirls show love to Coach Boynton and President Schrum for coming out to support them. Coach Boynton shouts out the Cowgirls on his personal Twitter, calling for support as they are legit national contenders. Lastly, for softball, outfielder Chelsea Alexander put on the first Chili Cowboy event, which raised more than $28,000 for Special Olympics. As you can see, a bunch of special people who make our athletics great joined in for a great time and a great cause. Using social media to showcase our amazing Cowboy family and how we are always all in for a great cause. Baseball is up next with Cowboys supporting Cowboys as former Cowboy football player Malcolm Rodriguez was in the NFL Draft Combine and our baseball socials wished him luck. Also, former Cowboy baseball player Andrew Heaney, now pitchers for the Dodgers, came back to Stillwater for a first pitch at O'Brate. Next is my personal favorite, seeing all of the players' walk-up songs for the 2022 season. And lastly, for my social media update, we have our men's basketball seniors getting honored as their last game as Cowboys was this week. Now back to Phoenix at the desk.
Thanks, Cameron. It's great to see some of our Pokes activities across social platforms. It's a great way to show what the team's personalities are like.
After showing you updates on things such as Cowboy baseball to tennis at Greenwood, I think that's all the time we have for this week. We're excited to see how our Cowboy and Cowgirl teams continue to compete in the weeks to come.
As always, be safe and go Pokes.